Greetings, people. My name is Zekarias. I'm the NEC rep for the Black Students Campaign. I'm sort of filling in for Malia Boate, who's the National of the Black Students President of the organization. And I sort of serve as like the number two, so to speak. I haven't really prepared a speech, so it's sort of like off the cuff, but I want to specifically talk about the subject, and I want to thank, of course, the organizers of this event. I want to speak specifically about the subject of youth, students, and how, at least it relates to the Black Panther Party. Now, as many of you should know, the Black Panther Party was started off by students, two particular students, discussing amongst each other, and of course, organizing this mass party, Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, with, of course, Bobby Hutton as their first recruit. And they wanted to mobilize youth, mobilize the students, mobilize young people as a whole, into basically setting up this organization that would stand up for black people, stand up against oppression, against police brutality. And this party, of course, is today, or at least it was known as the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. Now, the students today, at least young people, at least should understand, many of us are here today as well. I myself, pretty young, at least 23 years old. Many of us should understand that the youth and young people are the driving force of any movement, of any revolution, whether you like it or not. And this is a fact. If you look at it through history of any other country, across the globe, across the world, if you look at any single revolutionary activity, or any liberation movement, whether it's in the global south or whether it's in the west, no matter what happens, it's always been at least driven forward by the youth, by the young people. And I think the potential of that happening here is immense. We live at a time right now where, of course, with the Tory measures and the austerity measures that are plaguing and completely destroying the education system, not just for black students, but for all students, where you have black students who have lack of access to education, or at least decent forms of education, where you have mental health rates in the black community disproportionately affecting black people in comparison to their white counterparts. When you look at all of these disproportionate statistics, more black people in prison. We constitute about, what, 10% of the population? Or it was, no, 3.5% of the national population, and yet we're 14% of the prisons. How does that add up? Where are the numbers? Why are things going wrong? Because of the level of discrimination against our people is immense, and it continues on even to this very day. It's not a historical matter. It's not something that started off in the 60s and ended in the 80s or the 90s. It continues on and continues on and will continue until this empire called Great Britain continues to exist. Now, us as young people, I hate to say this, but at the same time, one of the reasons why we have, particularly students, the resources to continue these movements, or to continue the struggle itself, is because us, for example, at universities or at colleges, access, for example, to buildings or rooms that we can hold conferences. We have access, of course, to books and literature that we can read, study past movements, study historical movements and organizations in the past, learn from their mistakes, and continue on the struggle that should have been continued, but had been halted, of course, by Western imperialists and halted by fascists and racists. Because, of course, in the 1970s, you had the Black Panther Party completely destroyed as a result of J. Edgar Hoover's COINTELPRO, and as a result of continued repression at the hands of the local police, as well as the federal government. So students, particularly the Black Students Campaign, the Black Students Campaign itself represents over 1 million African, Caribbean, Arab, and Asian students. We have the resources to not only drive forward, not just the resources, but the politics, in the sense that we want to drive forward this liberation movement. We want to drive forward the same rhetoric that was used back in the day, that spoke about pride in being black, that spoke about the struggles of racism, and the fact that we need to oppose racism by any means necessary. And this is something that we want to continue, and not just continue within students and just maintain it within academia, but also extend it into the community. One of the beautiful aspects about, Millian and what she's doing is connecting the Black Students Campaign with the local black community, which is something that is essential because it has to relate to the realities of young black people in the community who are not in higher education, who are not in further education, but still have the same potential and the same ability and the same drive, the same passion, the same charisma to continue that same struggle on the streets of Brixton, on the streets of Peckham, on the streets of Harlesden, on the streets of North London and South East London. This is the same passion that we need to continue within the communities and make sure that black people, not just within London, but even in Birmingham, Liverpool, wherever we are, Manchester, that we rise up as one people, as one nation, for one common cause against one particular enemy. And that's something that needs to be driven forward by the students. Now, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to obviously talk about the Black Students Campaign, because of what we do in sense of holding workshops, talking about, or at least setting up workshops, training students to monitor police in the local community, whether it's at carnival events or whether it's at different gatherings and social events or protests that are going on. Because we need to make sure that the police are held to account for the bullshit that they do. I hope I can cuss and everything. Sorry about that. But that needs to happen. Because racist, fascist pigs, as we all know, continue to harass young black people, brutalize them, victimize them, criminalize them on the streets of Tottenham and on the streets of South London. And this continues to happen on a daily basis. The stories that I've heard from my own friends would horrify you, where racist pigs would come off in their vans, drag 14 and 12-year-olds on the street, beat them senseless, lay them down and tell them that you didn't see nothing, nothing happened, and if you complain, we're going to come after you. This is a real story. This is not something I read from a book, nothing I saw in a movie, St. Mississippi Burning. This is something that's real, that's happened in real life, and not something that happened in the 60s, but happened just last year. This is the reality, folks. This is realities. Racism exists. And us as a people need to unite. Us as a people need to organize. And not just young people, but people of all ages. But the young people have to be the driving force, because we're the ones who continue it into the next generation. And we are the ones who train young people after us. That is the key. That is the whole point of every single movement. It's about continuation. And that is the essential part of organizing young people, so that we as one nation, as one people, as one community, can forward on and achieve the goals that we want to achieve and fulfill the dreams of, or the tasks or the goals of the people behind us, as the goals of Assata Shakur, of Malcolm X, of Kwame Nkrumah, of Patrice Lumumba. And that is the key and that is the goal. So I'm not going to speak too much. Thank you.